Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining today, everybody. And if this is your first time here, hey man, hang out with me for a little bit here. See if you learn something, see if you like the vibe. We're doing these things multiple times a week. So, hey, maybe you want to be whiskey friends long term. Come join the party. So, for today's whiskey review, we got a Jim Beam product called, I think, Legent. Legent? I think it's Legent. I've heard people say different things, but I can't figure out in my head how else to pronounce it. So if you can help me in the comments, either confirm that it's Legent and then I can stop obsessing about this, or find a way to phonetically tell me how to really pronounce it. But I'm going to go through Legent for the whole time here. So for Legent, it is a Jim Beam product that is at least partially finished in wine casks and sherry casks, and all blended together in collaboration with a Japanese chief blender. So that's the big thing on this one, is distilled by Jim Beam, but blended by a Japanese chief blender with his Japanese sensibilities going into it. But ultimately, what you have is essentially a sherry finished, lovely Jim Beam product. So I'm excited to break this one down with you. This has been a favorite pour of mine for a little bit. It's actually been a little bit since I bought one. So excited to get back into this one. Thanks for joining today, everybody. Let's kick off the show. All right. So for today's review, I am going to pour this into a Mash and Journey Glen. Cheers, Jason and Scott. So for this one, Legent, I've always liked this label. Now the label's a little different since the last time I bought this thing, but it's got essentially this brush stroke that goes across the label, and then you can see the outlines of the faces, and it talks about the two people that, collaborated on this one. But ultimately, it was distilled by Jim Beam and then blended by a Japanese chief blender. And even on the label, like it says this, partially finished in wine and sherry casks. So something about how he blended together. Some of it must be unfinished, some of it must be wine finished, some of it must be sherry finished, and that's ultimately how this thing came together. This particular one is 94 proof, and for me, it ran $30. It was on sale. It is typically closer to $40, and that's going to come into play later in the review. I'm a lot more comfortable with this one at 30 than I am at 40. I don't think there's anything else to note about this one. Now, for this one too. So when I bought this, when I bought this the first, second, third time, label was a little different. It has been kind of like a year and a half since I bought this, but I was a big fan of it when it initially came out. I know it was a bit divisive though. When it initially came out, I think people thought that there was going to be more of a Japanese influence, not just blended by a Japanese chief blender. And I think that was a little bit of a misnomer that people had going into the experience. But man, I've been a big fan of this all along. So we're going to go through this one. We're going to break down the nose and we'll break down the palate, and then we'll get into the official scores. Thanks for joining me today, everybody. Cheers. Man, that's really coming through this time. Whew. So it's Jim Beam. I mean, the Jim Beam nuttiness shines through. I mean, a lot of this is just a core Jim Beam product. All the Jim Beam line, that you're paying $20, $30 for, that is the baseline of this entire thing. And you especially find it on the nose. There are some dried fruits that really shine through. I'd equate them to dried apricots and dried figs, essentially. So that's a little bit of a different range than typical there. Um, Hints of milk chocolate and just a splash of black pepper. I think are the main notes that I would say off the nose. But man, that Jim Beam nuttiness, the peanut shells, gosh, the peanut butter. I mean, it's all there. It's pretty dominant too. But that probably lends itself to that whole partially finished thing. I think a good portion of this is probably not finished, and then the wine finished cast and the sherry finished cast are all blended in there for those other elements. But this really is a Jim Beam product. Let's get into the palate. Mm. Oh, see, I find that so lovely. One thing that does stick out to me, this is 94 proof. It is so creamy and nice from a mouthfeel perspective. And up front, at least initially, the nuttiness does not dominate. It's really not that present at all. For the most part, the dried fruits come through. So it's fruit forward, mostly with the apricots, and then that pepperiness is what I get on the front of the palate initially. Let's go into mid palate. Mm, man, got extra sweet on that second sip there. The nuttiness really starts coming through mid palate. I mean, it is just peanut shells. The vanilla, though, then comes through with the sweetness that I was noting. There is a slight cherry, and I don't know how else to articulate it other than being just dry wine. I don't have a particular note to hang my hat on when I say that, just a dry red wine. And I don't know what wine it is when they say it's wine and sherry finish. I don't know what that other wine is. So maybe that's in my head, but I get that sensation mid palate. Yeah. And then all that comes together for the finish. The fruits come together. So the cherries, the apricots, there's even a bit of grape to it. And all of that is a little bit combined with a cream. Um, Essentially a whipped cream, I guess is how I would equate that. So you got the fruits, and then it's Jim Beam. It's the nuttiness that's them playing with that. So you got the peanut shells, you got the peanut butter, and it's just a dance between those two. A bit peppery too, as I'm sitting here talking on the finish as well. So all the same notes that I've been saying this entire time all come together on the finish. And even now, I'm still getting a bit of that dried apricot. So the finish lasts for quite a bit, especially considering the proof level. So that's just a testament to how this was blended and how oily it is. All right, I'm gonna go in for one more sip, see if I have any other things to talk about. Hmm, man, the only thing I would say with this one, and this is where the price probably matters the most. Once again, getting this one on sale for 30, I was like, oh hell yeah. Sometimes I see this thing for like $45, $43. Ooh, that kind of makes me, ooh, I don't know about that. The baseline of this thing is a Jim Beam product. I mean, you're talking essentially, um, just baseline Jim Beam, what you would expect from a bottle and bond, even Jim Beam. But the finishing and the blending brings all those fruits and it brings that next layer. But the core heart of it is still just Jim Beam. So to raise it up to that $45 price versus kind of the 20 to $25 range that a lot of the products that I'm talking about exists, I don't know. That's the weird part about this one. It's all about the price. So let's bring up the official scores here. So here on the site, we do break things down into a 3-tier scoring system. We got flavor, we got experience, and we got value. The value is the one I played with a little bit. I didn't base this on what I paid. I based this on MSRP. So with this one, I mean, ultimately, it brings good flavors the entire time, and it brings a good experience the entire time too. Honestly, with this tasting that I just had, I kind of feel like I undercut the experience score just a little bit. I think there's some depth there, and I think the mouthfeel and the finish was really good too. But this is how I rated it officially. It does put it at a 69, which is a good score. Man, just a hair from being very good. And honestly, I think off today's tasting, I might have rated it a very good. So it just teeters there. You know, in all these scores, there's a little bit of a range. There's a plus minus. There's a little bit of a, sampling error or whatever to these things, plus minus 2 points sometimes. This one could have been very good. Would I recommend this to people? Yeah, I'd say 8 out of 10. I recommend this. So I have encountered various people that are adverse to a nutty forward bourbon. So those people I wouldn't recommend this to, but to introduce somebody to something that's like a finished whiskey and the possibilities of it and the fruit flavors that can come forward with it, I think this is a perfectly good and inviting one for that. Do I plan to buy another? Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know how long it'll take me to buy another, but I plan to buy another. I bought 2 or 3 of these initially when it first came out, and then I probably went a year and a half without buying one until the bottle that I'm reviewing now. But lives up to all my memories and expectations of it. I like this. I would take this around, put it in a flask, have some fun with it. I mean, geesh, it's a good bottle for $30 especially. Holy cow. What a deal on that one. So if you see it on sale, man, my recommendation level even goes up and my score goes up on that one. So that breaks down the Legent. It's Legent, right? I swear it's Legent. Legent? Legent? I don't know how else you would say it. It's Legent. That breaks down the Legent, everybody. Thanks for joining me for today's whiskey review. I'll catch you next time. Goodbye, whiskey friends.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends.